Okay, sorry to start off on a negative, but Prime Minister, you have identified the way that the cancer drugs announcement was handled as one of the biggest regrets or mistakes of the government. You've also had hospitals not opening due to doctors not being available. Would you call health the Achilles heel of this government?
Well, I wouldn't call it that. I'd just say it's certainly our most challenging portfolio. You know, we've got 85,000 people that work in a very large organisation. There was a botched merger in the creation of Health New Zealand. Basically 20 DHBs were just whacked together, 2,500 managers over the top of it. So it's incredibly complex. As you work your way through it, the first job is we have to make sure we've got funding and money going into the system, and we have. We've got $30 billion currently. You know, we put record amounts of money in, $17 billion over the next 3 years. Unprecedented record investment. That's great, that's really good, and we worked hard to make sure that we can put that money into healthcare because we think it's appropriate that we do. But the big issue is we've got to improve the performance of Health New Zealand, and that's why we put a commissioner in place, because we're trying to put lots of extra investment in, but that money's got to get through a healthcare system to actually support our frontline doctors and nurses so that they can deliver better health outcomes for New Zealanders. So without doubt, health is a really challenged and difficult portfolio.
I understand that you personally have been getting involved in some of the briefings and decision makings. Is that right? And why?
Yeah,
do you feel the need
it's just one where it's just such a big challenge, and it's such a complex organisation, as you can understand. It's across the whole country. It's got regional components to it. It's got many sector components from primary care through to hospitals. Health New Zealand is a big beast, and so I, as Prime Minister, and the way that I work is that I will float to where I think I can add value and where I can make a contribution. And so yes, I've been having regular meetings right from day one. With the health ministers, also with the chair and CEOs.
Do you have confidence in Shane Reti?
Yeah, I do. I think he's doing a really difficult job well, and he's working his way through those issues. And I also have confidence in Lester Levy, who's our Commissioner of Health New Zealand, and the Deputy Commissioners that are with him as well. But it's a tough, there's no doubt, tough job. I've got the funding right, we've got clarity on what the outcomes are, which is the targets. Now we need to make sure that we've got a high-performing organisation that can deliver that for New Zealanders.
Because if you personally get involved in that doesn't really give an air of confidence in the minister, does it?
No, I think it's just a different way of working, and I appreciate, I'm not a career politician. I've come from sort of running large organisations, and it's hard. And when you're doing a turnaround, which is what we desperately need in health, and let's be honest, even if our economy was 4 times wealthier, we'd still be talking about health because we'd never think we've got enough in healthcare. So, for me, it's really about making sure that I'm supporting my ministers, and so that's why I float. And I do the same thing. When we got poor maths results in, I bring in the Minister of Education, the CEOs, their executive teams. We talk about, okay, in the next week, what are we going to do differently to deal with those maths challenges? So it's a different way of working. I wouldn't read it that way at all.
Is there any minister that you're working more closely with than Shane Reti?
Well, there's lots actually. I spent a lot of time in the finance space. Obviously, Nicola and I work really closely about the challenges that we've inherited in the economics, which has been really challenging. I actually spend a lot of time with the ministers. It's the way that I kind of work, whether it's been infrastructure. I spend a lot of time with Chris Bishop. Erica Stanford and I have been really passionate about education from our time in opposition, and we're working really well through that. So, it's the way that I work is probably a little more informal than what maybe previous. I don't know how other Prime Ministers have done the job, but I just know what works for me is that actually being able to float and to be able to go and support a minister or challenge a minister that needs challenging or one that needs supporting, that's what I should be doing. And what I'm interested in, as you know, is outcomes. And so, there's a lot of stuff that goes on around us and a lot of noise around us, but actually in the machinery and the operation of government and how we work and how we lead, that's kind of important.
Are you planning a cabinet reshuffle in the new year?
Well, I just have a mode which is I'll make changes as I feel they need to, and that's how I've always run, which is if I think there's someone that needs support or a change is needed, you'll just see me do that.
You've spoken a lot over the last week or so about how the coalition's working, and your partners have as well. Do you ever wish you could reshuffle them out?
No, look, I've actually really enjoyed it. You come to politics and, the New Zealand people vote for MPs that send to this place. My job as the leader in the National Party was to fashion a strong National Party team, which we did through opposition, and reset the National Party, as you saw over the last 2 years before we came to government. We've got a strong National Party team, and then as we bring in coalition partners, and I'm proud of the National Party, but I'm also proud of those minor parties as well.
Yeah, those minor parties, a couple of their ministers are in charge of probably some of your more controversial or riskier reforms, Nicole McKee around guns, you've got Karen Shaw in charge of the military academies, Casey Costello, smoke free. When it comes to getting alongside, say like you have with Shane Reti, do you have the same relationship with the coalition ministers and do you have the same ability to reshuffle them if they're not doing a good job?
Well, I do. I mean, I talked, like Karen Shaw and I've spent a lot of time working together on the military style academies. Nicole McKee and I've talked on a number of issues, as have Casey and I as well. So, actually it's not a dissimilar way in terms of just because they're from other parties, it's the same way that I kind of work. And I'll work directly with the minister as well. So, we'll come together and
So they're not treated differently than National Party ministers and held to a different standard?
No, I don't think so. And it's just really around making sure that, we've got major challenges in OT, for example. As you know, we've had, a series of reviews over a long period of time. Yep. Safeguarding of our children, our most vulnerable, is really important. We want to get the military-style academies genuinely right as a powerful intervention. And so it's been good to be able to work with, say, Karen on those things, alongside Louise Upston and Karen and myself. I also run what we call the strategy committee, and I've orientated that around those 9 big goals. And it's a chance for the minister and the CE for us just to soak on 1 or 2 of those targets for an hour and say, what else could we be doing? What is the root causes of some of the challenges that we've got around school attendance or around wait lists or around job seekers, you saw over the course of this week, or emergency housing's been a great one where Chris and Tama and myself and the team have gotten behind that.
Yeah. On just while we're on military academies, to get a bottom line for you, if you see any harm being done to children in those academies, will you promise to shut them down?
Well, I can tell you, I know the media and everyone's wanted to present them as in their head as to what they think they are, and you've called them boot camps and all that stuff, and I get that. That's fine, right?
It's not just the media, though. It's the survivors of state care, right? And you've delivered a national apology, and what they want to hear from you is that if you see anything happening like that again, will you shut those down? Yes,
we will. But the point is very clearly that I think that's a very unfair comparison to say the boot camps that we saw, for example, on Great Barrier Island. If you read those accounts, that was horrific abuse, right, that took place. That was completely wrong. If you try and link that by any association, and largely it's done conveniently through a name called a boot camp, the reality is go and understand what we've been doing on those in the military style academies. I went and visited there for 4 hours, met with each of the 10 young men that were involved in that, met with the people that were with them, really comfortable with the safeguarding that took place, massive investment of psychologists, social workers, all the support that they need to set them up. Why are we doing that? Because we know where those lives are going. They are some of our most serious, persistent offenders of young people at the age of 15, 16, 17, 18 already, right? So if we just let them run through the system, and you think about the next 20 years of where their lives go and the damage that they cause to the society and also to themselves, that's not great. So why wouldn't we make those interventions? But I just say to you, I think it's lazy and I think it's disingenuous, frankly, just trying to link what happened in the 70s to something that we're doing very, very differently today.
On guns, will you make a promise? There's some reforms coming up that Nicole McKee is leading. A lot of people have concerns because of her previous life. She was part of a lobby that, lobbied against changes that the government made in the post-March 15 era. Will you make a promise that when those gun reforms happen, you will not let military-style semi-automatic firearms be more accessible to people than they are today?
I can reassure you, we haven't had the conversations in Cabinet yet because there's, as you know, there's 4 phases to the reforms that are taking place. One was around clubs. We've got to work our way through the Arms Act rewrite, which is an old piece of legislation that is really clunky and not clear. And what we want is maximum clarity, and we want maximum improved and enhanced public safety. So I can reassure you that my starting position with Nicole has been very clearly, we need to see enhanced public safety. So I don't...
But does that include making sure that military-style semi-automatics don't go to any more people than they currently are? So there's pest controllers and collectors at the moment. Will that be extended to anyone else? Will there be more access?
Again, we're in a public consultation process. The public will be consulted. There's targeted consultations been going on as well. I need to let that process run. There'll be a cabinet conversation. But what I can reassure you about is that the position of me and many of our cabinet colleagues is very firm around wanting to see public safety enhanced.
But
so I just don't want to.
You can't say that there won't be more.
It's unfair of me to go presuppose a conversation that we haven't had a chance to have a conversation at in Cabinet. So I appreciate you want the answer, but you're not going to get the answer because I need to follow a process to make sure that actually I need to let that run, because there's a number of other issues, frankly, around the Arms Act that we need to improve to strengthen public safety, and I get it, semi-automatic as a piece of it, but it's not all of it. And I want to look at that in the round, and I want to understand it, but I want to reassure you, we want to make sure at the end of it all is a much stronger public safety.
The gun register is something that is part of those reforms. The police really don't want that scrapped. Will you commit to not scrapping the gun register?
All we've committed to is to make sure that it is functioning as a review of the gun registry, not to scrap the gun registry. We've said we'd undertake a review. It's
so you won't scrap it?
Well, it's appropriate we do a review, and that review needs to run its course to see how we can improve
so
it, what's working well, what's not working well, and then we'll come together and have a conversation.
But scrapping it is on the table?
I would just say to you, I don't think that's very likely. We're doing a review of it to make sure that, but let's see and let that work go through. You know, in fairness, that's our commitment in the coalition agreement, and it's a legitimate one, because you've seen gun registries all around the world be imposed and put together, and they've been badly run, badly managed. And as you've seen us make interventions on things like, for example, school lunches, where we actually are able to feed more kids at lower cost and get a better outcome, we want to make sure that we've got everything set up right to manage that well. So we'll do a review of the gun registry, and we'll see, and we'll have a further conversation.
Are Kiwis still suffering a cost of living crisis?
Well, I think we've made good progress in 12 months. You know, we've broken a big part of the back of it. You know, as you've seen, you had inflation at a 7.3% under the previous administration, down to 2.2. First time it's in the band in 3.5 years. Why is that so important? It's not just the numbers, it's what that represents. Mm-hmm. You know, that now means food prices have stopped growing at 12% as they were. They've been growing at 1.2%, you know, rather than 12.something%.
But so the food prices are baked in, right? And wages haven't grown.
No,
like because they're not growing.
But there's a good example, right?
Doesn't mean that
you
they've
had
dropped
13 quarters in a row under Labor where wages didn't keep up with the prices of things. Under our government, you've had 4 quarters where actually wages have grown faster than prices, right? Mm-hmm. So
is there still are Kiwis still
there is still a cost
crisis?
of living challenge for New Zealanders, but I just say to you, you've had a government that has broken, I think, a good part of it, and is making it easier for New Zealanders. I'm not denying that it's still very tough for New Zealanders, but I just think when you look back and say, well, tax relief to lower middle income workers. It was amazing. I was down in Queenstown 2 weekends ago. Guy just comes up to me, a retailer comes out and just says, "Hi, Crystal, I want to say thanks for tax relief." He'd registered it in his pay slip, you know, after it started to come through. You know, New Zealanders that actually have got high mortgage rates, they've had 3 rate cuts versus 12 rate rises. You've got inflation within the band. You know, that's been that inflation in the band has enabled those interest rate cuts to happen. So I appreciate it's still tough, still moments of turbulence, still, you know, difficult waters to navigate. But are we in a better place on cost of living than we were 12 months ago? Yes. Tax relief, inflation relief, mortgage rate relief, working for families, family boost, all those things are designed to deal with the cost of living. We've got spending under control, inflation down, interest rates down. Now our focus has to be on economic growth and jobs.
I just want to pitch forward to next year. You're going to start the year with a trip up to Ratana, I assume. And then we're going to have submissions.
We'll be starting work a bit earlier than Ratana. Hard-working government.
And then we're going to have some submissions on the Treaty Principles Bill, and then you'll go up to Waitangi. So you're going to find yourself again in the middle of the Treaty Principles debate. Looking back to the coalition talks, you were under a lot of pressure to get a deal done in a timely fashion. Do you think if you had more time, you would have come to the same compromise?
No, I mean, this was a major issue for both parties that we felt very strongly about. And in fact, we agreed that we would park it as the last issue to deal with because there were such strongly held opinions on both sides of that debate. I think we moved through coalition negotiations really well. As I said, I think those negotiations set us up to give us a very stable, coherent government because I made each of the parties sign up to the national agenda and then our own agreements where we had commonality and some differences put into those agreements, but then they cross-signed each other's. But look, it's just the reality of it. You're living in an MMP world and you cannot have a first-past-the-post mentality, right? And that, so you've got to do a compromise.
The question is, if you had more time, would we be in this situation?
No, time wouldn't have helped us at the end of the day.
Yeah. Right. And Who came up with the compromise? Was it the National Party or the ACT Party? Did
Well,
you
it's a
agree
series
to their
of conversations that go on about how
Well,
we would...
I understand it was the only option that was put on the table. So was it a National Party idea or an ACT Party
Look,
idea?
I'm not getting into the negotiations. We worked them through. It was an incredibly intense period of time as we were managing a lot to form a three-party coalition government. But that experience is no different from what many leaders and governments go through in Western Europe, as I've talked about before. So, you're seeing a maturing of MMP. You're seeing parties that have a lot of common interests. In our cases, we've got a massive overlap of commonality. Yes, we have some differences. That is the biggest difference that was between our two parties. No one got what they wanted. Yes, it's a compromise.
Could you have set them down at all? Could you have said, no,
it's
I'm
pretty
just
clear
not
to
going to
me
do
that
this?
that was a major issue for ACT, and it was a major concession for them agreeing to that position in the same way it was a concession for us.
And on the Hikoi, I know you said you didn't want to go down there because the organisers. I went down there and walked with the Hikoi, and what I noticed about it were there are a lot of quite young children, like 3, 4, 5, 6-year-olds, and a lot of them were saying that they were out there just to be Māori. They feel like their identity is under attack. If you had been able to go down and speak to the Hikoi, what would you say to those kids?
Well, I mean, they've got a government that actually wants young Māori kids to do exceptionally well into the future, and I'm really genuinely serious about it. We've seen a 4% improvement in Māori getting into school. We've seen a huge amount of effort of young Māori kids coming out of emergency motel accommodation into a proper home.
Do you feel they're hurt though? They're kind of being told that their identity is under attack.
No, we value their identity and we value all New Zealanders. But if you want to talk about it, let's take a step back and have a proper conversation about it. You had a situation under the previous government where frustration and division built up because they failed to take the New Zealand people on the journey of a separate health authority, three waters co-governance, Wellington mandated local Māori wards.
But is this the right way to fix it?
Well, I'm just saying to you, what we're doing is the right way to fix it is not to do a very simplistic treaty principles bill that overwrites 184 years of debate, discussion that's made this country great, trying to wrestle with and grapple with the impact of the treaty and the obligations that we have as Crown and Māori to each other. That's made us a better country. But the right way to deal with it is to take each of those issues and take them through. So I appreciate people may not, and not in all of Māoridom would say, getting rid of the Māori Authority is terrible. No, actually, massive bureaucracy, poor results, poor delivery.
Yeah.
We think we can deliver in a better way.
But if the division was seeded by a government failing to take people with them, and then another government comes in and lurches in the opposite direction.
Well, I disagree. You saw us in opposition have opposition to those policies, articulate our opposition at that point in time, go to an election, which is the ultimate way in which you get a mandate for what you're doing. We were very transparent about our position on Māori Health Authority, around co-governance of three waters, around our position around the MACA bill, certainly around our position around local Māori wards. There are principled reasons for why we took those positions. We articulated them in opposition. We went to the election campaign being very clear about those things, and we've gone off and implemented those things. And so, but what I want to reassure people is, a conversation on a treaty principles bill is a distraction, and it's counter to what we're trying to do, which is actually make sure we rebuild the economy. Because it turns out Māori want higher incomes, they want better houses, they want better education, access to healthcare, all of those good things too.
Final question, crystal ball to December 2025. We're sitting down here having the same interview. Will you be able to say at that point that New Zealand is more united than now and than when you took office? Yeah,
I really want to. I mean, I know there are tensions in democracies all around the world at the moment. It's a really, disruptive time, to be honest, in the world, if I'm honest with you. And that's a conversation I've had with many other world leaders as well. We're all dealing with the disruptions and the anxieties and frustrations that come for people around that. And as governments, my job is to try and find a pathway through that where there are people on all sides of a debate like a treaty principles bill, and actually our job is to say, hey, listen, and I've got to tell you, 12 months into this job, I know I'm a born optimist, but I am honestly so pumped and excited about the future for New Zealand. And if we can all say, right, well, what do we need to do? It doesn't mean we're going to agree on everything. It doesn't mean that we have a homogeneity of thought. But actually, if we can agree on we are all united on trying to make this a better country that realises all the fantastic potential that we have in front of us to build the best damn small country on earth, period, that's really what we can unite people around. So, in my conversations, whether it's with iwi leaders, whether it's with school teachers, whether it's police officers, we're all in this together. We all have a different role to play, yes in government, but yes in community, yes in media, yes in the business world. Everyone's got a contribution to make, and how we harness that. It doesn't mean we're going to agree, but we can be united on the goal. And I think it's pretty special in New Zealand. You know, I lived a lot of time overseas, and there are countries that I can think of where you cannot get people who are of different political persuasions to come and be in the same room together to have a conversation about stuff like this. And I think in New Zealand, as difficult as it often is, we show up, we still have a conversation, we still have the dialogue, even if we agree, and that's pretty special. So we've got to protect that. But yes, we can be more unified, but more importantly, we can realise more great potential in this joint.
Cheeky quickfire, you're absolutely, definitely running in 2026?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I love this job. I mean, it's a fantastic job. I mean, it's a real privilege to do it. Yes, it comes with some pretty big responsibilities, which I carry all the time. But, you know, I get to see incredible Kiwis doing amazing things every day. And my job, and the reason I came to politics 4 years ago, is I'm connected to a mission and a purpose, which is, man, we're going to build a great country here, and we've got so much potential. 12 months into it, I feel that more strongly than ever, and more determined to do everything I can to help New Zealand get there.
Okay, thank you for your time, Prime Minister.
Appreciate it. Good to be with you.